Hey guys, welcome back. And if my voice sounds a little off, I'm sorry, but I've been sick. That's why I haven't posted any videos lately. My voice was shot. But I wasn't even planning on talking about this. I was going to leave it alone, but then I saw the interviews with Elizabeth Tulloch and Tyler Hoechlin from On the Inside of You podcast hosted by Michael Rosenbaum. And if you don't remember Michael Rosenbaum, he was Lex Luthor in Smallville. And Elizabeth Tulloch was Lois Lane in Superman and Lois. And Tyler Hoechlin played Superman. Both of them claiming they stuck the landing with Superman and Lois by killing off Superman. That told me everything I needed to know. They didn't respect the character. Not really. I grew up loving Superman since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. And in the last few years, I've had to watch everything he stood for be stripped down and mocked, and finally killed by the people who claim to respect the character. You didn't stick the landing, you buried him. Let's talk about it. Let's start with the ending itself. Superman and Lois didn't end with purpose. It ended with a whimper. They didn't give us legacy, they gave us a slideshow. Superman, one of the most iconic symbols of hope in human history, dies of heart failure, not in battle, not saving the world, just fades away. And they dressed it up like it's poetic, a mechanical heart. John Henry Irons sacrifices himself to give it to him like it's some noble moment. But it isn't, because it's built on lazy logic. John and his daughter, Natalie, are two of the smartest characters in the show. They are geniuses. They built iron suits representing steel from Steel Superman. They built a heart advanced enough to power a Kryptonian body. But somehow couldn't build two. Couldn't make another one later. It's not sacrifice. It's sabotage and disguised as sentiment. And you know what's worse? But there was a better ending staring them in the face. John gives up his heart to save Superman. Natalie promises she can build another. End on a cliffhanger. Maybe John's in stasis. Maybe the tech is unstable. Leave the audience with hope that Superman's legacy, not finality. Hope. What's worse, they spent nearly an entire season neutering Superman, emotionally reducing him to a helpless, grieving husband while Lois suffers from cancer. This is a man who can rebuild cities, survive black holes, lift planets, restart suns. But now he's powerless in the face of a disease we all know he should have had the tools to combat. If the writers respected what he actually is, this wasn't a finality. It was a funeral. And not just for Superman the character, but for what he stood for. Truth, sacrifice, restraint, leadership. They stripped all of it down to a cheap goodbye and called it closure. Now that brings me to Tyler Hoechlin, if I'm saying his last name right. I loved him in Teen Wolf. He brought intensity, weight, presence to that role, and I respected him for it. That's what made his version of Superman so frustrating to me, because somewhere along the way, all that presence vanished. It's like he clocked in, read lines, and checked out. Now let's talk about the man under the cape, because Tyler Hoechlin's attitude toward this role says a lot about how we ended up with such a hollow version of Superman. Tyler Hoechlin, the man, admitted in an interview he never even wanted the role of Superman. He said it just kept coming back to him, so he took it. And maybe that flies for a detective and a crime show, but not Superman. Superman isn't just a role, it's a mantle, a legacy. It carries 95 years of history, of moral weight, of cultural symbolism. You don't stumble into that and treat it like just another gig. And I liked Tyler in Teen Wolf. I respected him. But you could feel it in the later seasons of Superman and Lois. He didn't believe in the role anymore. There was no presence, no weight. Superman became a background character in his own show. Compare that to Henry Cavill, who didn't just love Superman, he fought to do him justice. He built his own gaming PCs, which I know has nothing to do with this, read the comics, admitted he was a nerd and a geek, and regularly discussed Superman's lore in interviews and on social media. He didn't just respect the character. He understood him. and he wanted to get him right. And before him, Christopher Reeve didn't just act the part, he became it. He studied Superman's character, insisted on playing both Clark and Superman with distinction, and even put on real muscle so the Superman suit wouldn't be padded. And the media echoed what fans already knew. Reeve made you believe a man could fly. That's respect. That's legacy. Cavill respected the cape, and Tyler wore it like a borrowed jacket. But here's where it gets even more obvious this wasn't about the story. It was about strategy. The timing of the show's end, the rollout of the interviews, which was about 2 months ago, but I just discovered them, and release of Gunn's new movie all line up too perfectly. Let's be honest about timing. Superman and Lois gets rushed to an end. The final season feels forced, like they were told to wrap it up, and not long after James Gunn's reboot drops. That's not a coincidence. That's a studio move. You can't have two live-action Superman at the same time without splitting the brand. So, CW was told to kill theirs off quietly to make room. And instead of saying that outright, they gave us this soft, empty finale with no fallout, no government reaction, no public fear. Superman reveals his identity to the world and nothing happens. That's where it completely falls apart for me. Because no fear, no backlash, no military response, just applause and emotional montages. That's not bold, that's delusional. In reality, the moment Clark Kent's identity goes public, the government would have gone into red alert. His loved ones would have been targets. They could have dropped a nuke on Smallville, and Superman might survive, but everybody else would be dead. That's the kind of fear that should have come from that reveal. But the show didn't touch it. Even the animated New 52 Death and Return of Superman did it right. Clark tells Lois that he hides his identity to protect his family and friends from the consequences of his actions as Superman. Because that's what a real Superman does. He doesn't just save the world, he protects the people closest to him from having to pay for it. And then the interviews drop. Elizabeth and Tyler on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, all calling it emotional, calling it brave. It's not brave, it's strategic damage control. They cleared the runway for Gunn and called it art. You know what would have been told? If the world didn't react to his identity reveal because they were scared, because they feared what Superman might become if they pushed back. That would have made sense. That would have been storytelling, like Injustice, the video game. Maybe people clapped on the inside, but planned in secret. Maybe the fear of what Superman could become if they acted out kept everyone in line. That would have been storytelling, but again, a missed opportunity. What stings the most is how they chose to end the series. But before we get to that, do you remember the first time Superman died? I do. I was 11 years old in 1992. Comic shops held candlelight vigils. Grown men cried. News anchors were doing live reports. The backlash was so intense, DC had to bring him back. This time, nothing. No outrage, no mourning, just silence. The culture has gotten so used to legacy characters being rewritten, killed off, and replaced, nobody flinched. They've done it before. Supergirl ended her series the same way, revealing her identity to the world like it was some kind of triumph. And again, no consequences, no fallout, no realism, just applause and roll credits. And that silence, that's worse than death because it proves what they wanted all along, to make you forget, to make you feel nothing, to kill Superman and pretend the world doesn't need him anymore. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about gatekeeping. I'm just passionate about the character because, like I said, I've been a fan since I was as far back as I can remember. It's about guarding what matters. Because when you love something, you don't let people spit on it and call it progress. And this isn't nostalgia, it's loyalty. Superman was more than just a childhood hero. He was a symbol of who we could be if we chose strength with compassion. If we stood for truth, even when it hurt. if we didn't fold every time the world said compromise. And now we get a version who dies quietly, who gets mocked, replaced, undermined, stripped down until there's nothing left but a name. They didn't carry the torch. They snuffed it out. And then they smiled on podcasts while the flames went cold. Because Superman was never just a man in a cape. He was an ideal. And to quote Jack Snyder's Man of Steel, said it perfectly. They will race behind you. They will stumble. They will fall. But in time, they will join you in the sun. Or join you in the light. He represented something higher. Like the men who held the flag at Iwo Jima. Like the soldiers who stood tall when the anthem played. Like the fathers who worked 3 jobs and still tucked their kids in at night. You kill that idea and you're not just killing a hero, you're killing the hope he was meant to inspire. I'm not clapping. I'm not clapping. I'm not excited about this. I'm very upset about this because what are they going to come after next? And I guess the real question is, should we move on from this? Because when all the heroes are gone, who do we look to? But I'm going to leave it there. If you like this, like, share, subscribe, and stick around. Because next, we're taking apart James Gunn's Superman. And trust me, that ain't Superman either. But that's in the next video. I will see y'all next time.